So you guys know that I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to testing trucks and kind of looking at the numbers and what kind of fuel economy do they get, how well do they tow, all that kind of stuff. You know, a lot of guys are interested in that, but I don't know, maybe I take it a little too far, overanalyze it sometimes, I don't know. But it occurred to me the other day though that I haven't really ever talked much about how this truck's been performing since I put those 35-inch tires on it. You know, if you go to the 5th Gen Ram forum, it's been a lot of, popular topic and discussion, because these trucks have a couple of different axle ratios. The standard ratio is a 3:21, which is pretty tall or numerically low, however you want to look at it, for a pickup truck. And then the optional ratio is a 392. There's a pretty big gap there. You know, a lot of trucks have, for example, maybe a 373 standard ratio and you can upgrade to a 410. That's not really, much of a difference. You're talking maybe 150 RPM on the highway. You can't even really detect that. But in this case, with the half-ton Rams, 321 to 392 is a pretty big difference. And, the thing about it is it's only a small upgrade. I mean, if monetarily speaking, if you're going to order one of these trucks, it used to be like a $95 option. I'm sure in today's world it's more than that, maybe 145, 150 bucks. So if you're going to order one, there's not a lot of extra cost to get the 392 axle, and I highly recommend it. But if you are not in a position where you're ordering the truck and you're just picking one off the dealership lot, which is what I did with this one, then chances are you probably won't get the 392s, because it seems like a lot of dealerships order these things and they don't spec that. They don't check that box off. So the truck shows up with the standard ratio, which again is a 321. Now, something else that's kind of interesting is the 5th Gen trucks come with 32-inch tires. The 4th Gen trucks had 33-inch tires. So, they put these 321 axles in these trucks, but they take the tire diameter down. And I guess that's how they make it all work out. And obviously they do that for fuel economy, because there's this idea floating out there that the lower numerically your axle ratio is, the better your fuel economy is going to be, which is not always the case, but that's the assumption. So anyway, long story short, dealers usually get these things with the standard ratio. And the question that's been asked so many times is, if you end up with one of these trucks that has the 321 axle ratio, axle ratio, can you still put 35-inch tires on it? How does it perform if you do? And then the other question that kind of goes along with that is, if you have the 321 axle, how does the truck tow? If you're going to tow a trailer with it, does it still tow okay? Does it perform all right? And interestingly enough, I do both with my truck. I put the 35-inch tires on there and I tow that big enclosed trailer. So I kind of do both with it. And it's been pretty interesting. I think the 8-speed transmission obviously was a game changer, because you got the really deep lower ratios to get you off the line. You got some really sweet ratios in the middle. And then you got a couple of overdrive gears. So the 8-speed really was a game changer. I mean, it's nothing like the old trucks that we remember from growing up at all. So the 321s in stock form were perfectly fine. With the 35-inch tires, honestly, it's still pretty good. You're going to lose some acceleration. You're going to lose some braking. The distance in an emergency stop is going to be a little farther, but it still has plenty of power. It doesn't lack for power at all. You can go out and romp the gas pedal and the truck still feels pretty strong, even with the 321s and the 35-inch tires. So I didn't feel like that was really a whole lot of a detriment to the truck when I put them on there. Now, granted, I did go with a load range D tire to keep the weight down a little bit. I think those tires weigh like 64 pounds a piece. So the specific tire you go with has a little bit to do with it also. But yeah, those Falken RTs and a 35, they haven't seemed to really hurt the truck a whole lot. Now, as far as towing goes, The truck still tows pretty well. It's got, you know, enough power to pull that trailer. It'll run like you've probably seen. I think I have showed this in some other videos. It'll run in 4th, 5th, 6th gear most of the time. It will hit 7th if you're going downhill, or if you're on a really flat stretch of road, it'll hit 7th. But most of the time it stays in 4, 5, 6, which is fine. You're not really turning excessive RPM at that point. It does really start to drink the gasoline at that point though. Towing that trailer right there, I figure it's probably around 6,000 pounds when it's completely loaded and we go on one of our camping trips. I'm seeing between 7 and 9 miles per gallon depending on the wind and the weather. So figure about 8 average. And that brings me to my next point, which is fuel economy. So with the 35-inch tires and the 321 gears, this is something else I haven't really talked about a whole lot. So the fuel economy has decreased. Anybody who tells you that they're putting bigger off-road tires on their truck and they're not losing anything is lying to you, or maybe they just don't know how to do basic math. You're definitely going to see some losses there. This truck was getting 17 average on my daily commute back and forth, pretty much a 50-50 split of city and highway, which is exactly what the window sticker said it would do. So it was right on the money with the window sticker at about 17 on the combined driving cycle. Now with those 35s on there, I'm somewhere around 14 and a half. On a good week, when the weather's nice like this, I can get about 15. You know, if the weather's pretty crappy and it's windy and raining and all that, I'll get about 14. So I've lost a solid 2 to 3 miles per gallon on my normal daily commute. Out on the highway the other day, about a week ago, my wife and I took a long highway trip down to Elizabethtown, Kentucky and back. So we were on the highway for like 90-something% of that fuel tank, and I got about 17 and a half miles per gallon. Going down there, it was showing about 18 on the dash. Coming back, it was showing about 17 and a half. A little bit of an elevation change there, so that's to be expected. So you can figure out on the open road, you know, you might get about 18 miles per gallon in this configuration. Now again, that's a Hemi non-e-torque. I didn't want e-torque. So that's just a traditional straight up Hemi V8, 321 gears and a 35-inch aggressive tire. So to get 18 miles per gallon out on the highway, I'm happy with that. I think that's actually pretty good. I don't have any problems with that at all. I can still muster 15 around town going back and forth to work and stuff, you know, if I'm easy on the throttle pedal. So I don't feel like that's really all that bad either. When it really starts to get into your pocket is when you hook up to a trailer like that, you start to tow, then you're going down into the single digits. But to be completely honest about it, a lot of stock trucks like the Fords with the EcoBoost engines, a lot of these high horsepower, high torque applications that have been out recently, a lot of them are done in the single digits when you're pulling a camper or something like that. So I guess really it's not all that bad in the grand scheme of things, but as the old saying goes, it is what it is. You know, if you're going to drive a V8 truck and pull something like that, you're going to have to stop at a lot of fuel stations. But overall, it's really not that bad, guys. I mean, 14 to 15 driving around my normal commute, I don't think it's all that bad. Obviously, it costs more money if you're going to mod your truck with a lift kit and tires and stuff. You're going to pay more money at the pump. Every time you drive the truck, it's going to cost you money. But we all kind of expect that, right? But anyhow, I just hadn't really talked about that much. I've had these tires on there now for almost 5,000 miles. We're going to be doing a 5,000 mile update on the Falcon RT, let you know how they're doing. So I've had them for about 5,000 miles, and I haven't really discussed much about how the truck's performing, how it's doing, if it's working out, you know. Would I still rather have the 392 axle ratio? Absolutely. Again, if you're going to order one of these trucks, go ahead and pay the $150 or whatever it is and get those 392 axle gears, because it'll tow a lot better, especially around town or going up the mountain roads or whatever the case might be, where you're not at full highway speed. You're kind of in that 35, 45, 50 mile per hour range. That's really where the 392 axle is going to shine. So definitely an advantage there. If you're going to put large tires on your truck like this, the 392 is also great, because obviously when you make your tires taller, your effective gear ratio, your overall drive ratio is going to go down. You know, so if you're starting out way up here at 392, then you're going to end up in a pretty good spot. In my case, I had 321s with those little 32-inch tires. So now that I've put some 35s on there, it's almost like I've got what I don't know, 280 or 290 axle ratio, something like that equivalent. So the 392s, definitely, I recommend them if you have an opportunity to get them. But if not, don't worry about it, because I'm happy to report that the 321 axles in this truck is doing a pretty good job. I mean, again, it's all about that 8-speed transmission. That's a real game changer. You've got every ratio you need. It's, you know, the whole spread. So it's all about the final drive ratio, I guess, and the transmission makes up for a lot of the axle shortcomings. So some people actually like the 321s because when you go out on the interstate, and let's say you're not pulling a trailer, you're just commuting somewhere, and you're running 75, 80 miles an hour, you can actually get really good gas mileage in this truck because the RPMs are still pretty low with that axle ratio. So some people actually prefer that. But then they feel like, you know, when you're going slow, you still got that deep ratios in the transmission to help you out. So it's all personal preference, but there's some good info for you for guys like me that like numbers. There's some concrete numbers. And by the way, I hand calculate all of my mileage with Fuelly.com, so I can keep track of how much it's costing me and what my lifetime average is with the truck and all that kind of stuff. You could even put notes in there. So if you're towing, you can put a note in there that you're towing. And that way in the future, when you look up that entry in your log and you see, wow, I got 8 miles per gallon, what's that all about? You can see the note over there that you were towing, and then, oh, okay, that makes sense, right? So pretty neat to do that, track it that way. But if you got any questions about the Rams, maybe you're shopping a Ram 1500 and you've kind of noticed these two really different axle ratios, don't know which one to go with, put a comment below. I'll try to help you out, but that's all I got for now. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you later.